And welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard A. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater. There
Got that
it is.
ASMR in
It
there.
is August 5th,
Stealing my
2021. Follow us on Twitter
Well, you
and
didn't
Facebook
bring anything
at the
to-
Gaming Discourse.
Well,
I'm
you
trying to
did-
drive for a second, please. This is a professional podcast. I'm trying to drive. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook
So
at the
anyway,
Gaming
Richard.
Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Claire DeLune review is the latest video up. I'm working on a few videos right now. So I've been playing a lot more Returnal, and it's getting to the point now where I have so many thoughts bouncing around my head
There's a lot to think about.
that I think I just may have to write a script.
no. Okay.
Because
All right.
Oh boy.
there's a lot going on in there. But yeah, a ton of news this week. We'll recap. The Activision Blizzard thing just does not stop. It seems like there's something new literally every day. So we'll recap that, and we got some other stories. Connor,
Correct.
you've been playing a ton of games.
Every single one of them forever.
No, Connor unfortunately hasn't been playing games. So I'm sorry about that. I'll go ahead and talk about Returnal. Richard, have you played a lot of Returnal since we last talked about it?
No. I haven't. I've not sworn it off, but I'm just like, I'm done with you.
You need to take a break from it. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So I love Returnal, but there are a few things that I really dislike about it that I think really, really hinder the entire experience. And as I've played more and sort of understood how the game works, the things that I like get better and better, and the things that I don't like get worse and worse, right? If that makes sense. So Returnal is surprisingly player friendly, at least in terms of roguelikes, because you can skip bosses. You don't have to fight them, which I was completely surprised by. I thought for sure it was going to be Hades, and I was going to have to fight each boss every single time. And when I beat the second boss, or when I beat the first boss, I was surprised that you could move on. So I was like, oh, well, maybe that's something you can just do with the first boss. And then the second boss, it's like, oh, you can skip not only can you skip the boss, but you can skip the back half, or the back, not even half, the back like 90% of the second level, because you go through it's called the Red Wastes, the desert, and go through the beginning of it. You get to a portal. That portal takes you up to where the boss is, but there's another portal right next to you that takes you to the next level. So you can skip over a huge swath of level.
Those portals are awesome, by the way.
Which, yes, and there's a lot of stuff about the game that's impressive. One is when you walk through a portal, there's like a split second of loading, almost that you don't even notice it, and you're on the other side, which is really freaking cool. It is essentially real time. Like you're walking through a portal, you end up on the other side, a completely different place. That's really neat. So it's surprisingly player friendly in that regard. Now, the thing that I really dislike about Returnal is the weapons. So I've discovered, I think, 5 weapons thus far. There are 2 essentially assault rifles. There's a pistol, a shotgun, a rocket launcher type thing, and then like a poison launcher, right? So there's 6. The assault rifles are what you want. Everything else is useless.
False.
See, now
Everything else is situational.
but that's the thing is I'm fine being wrong on this because I haven't played enough. But problem number 1 is I don't see why I need to get close to enemies. I don't want to get close to them. So everything that's like, now there are some enemies where you have to get close to them for certain reasons. That's fine. But there are certain things that's like 10% more melee damage. It's like, no, I don't want any of that. Like, I'm not getting close to an enemy. So weapons like the shotgun become useless because they spread, and you don't want to get close to enemies. Specifically also because enemies' short-ranged attacks are the hardest attacks to dodge. Because they jump really quick. The vampire blood butterfly things turn orange, and then they charge at you. All enemies seem to have a really difficult attack to dodge, a melee attack that's difficult to dodge. Whereas all their projectiles, it's a bullet hell, right? So they move relatively slowly, so you can dodge out of the way, stuff like that. So you don't want to get close to enemies, so that like negates the shotgun. The rocket launcher has, I think, that when you get it to begin, it has 3 shots, and then you have to reload. But those 3 shots aren't always enough to kill individual enemies. So if you're up against, I don't know, 5 enemies, you damage 3 of them, and then you have to reload 2 or full health, right?
Yes.
Now, the assault rifle, when you go up in Adrenaline, which is a different mechanic of the game, when you go up in Adrenaline, the assault rifle has an ability where it fires out like other projectiles, and you can change targets really quickly. So there are these enemies that have a super powerful laser, and it takes forever to charge up.
Mm-hmm. They're the stationary turrets, right?
Not the stationary turrets. They have wings, but they kind of look like jellyfish.
Oh, yes, I do know.
So you'll encounter like 10 of them at one, or not 10, but maybe say 5 of them. But at any enough. But at any given time, only one will charge up this attack. The rest do basic attacks. So it makes you change your target, right? Now, if you're using the rocket launcher, you have 3 shots before you have to reload. And all of a sudden, if you're facing 5 of them, the one on the right decides to charge, so you're switching targets real quick. Whereas the assault rifle, you have a ton of ammo, and you can just spray and pray all over the place, and they won't be able to get that attack off because as soon as you hit them, the attack goes away. So no matter where it goes, you have enough ammo to switch between. So anyway, this is what I mean. Like, I've really been digging into this. But the weapons just don't feel practical except for the assault rifle. The same thing is like with... like you are dodging and pressing circle. You're pressing circle and X and moving the camera so much that it's hard to aim with weapons that require more precision, like the pistol, because the pistol doesn't have so many rounds. So you have to hit all your target. You have to hit all of your rounds, or else you're going to be reloading a bunch and not taking a whole lot of damage away. And that's tough to do when you're moving the camera, jumping, and dashing. With the assault rifle, with the 2 different assault rifles, you have a ton of ammo. So if you miss a couple shots here and there because you're dodging or whatever, that's okay. Because you still got some damage in whatever enemy you're attacking. And that's especially true in boss fights, because bosses just throw all kinds of crap at you.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And it's amazing. I think the boss fights are freaking sick.
I like the next boss you're coming to, because you said you beat the first.
So
2,
I beat
right?
the first and second. Okay. I've gotten to the third boss.
Okay, that boss is awesome.
Is,
oh my God, he's so cool.
Crazy. Yeah. The third boss, like, I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I won't spoil anything, but at one point I thought Celine had died, and she didn't die, and I wasn't even sure what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then it was like, press triangle. I'm like, what? And it became one of the coolest boss fights I've ever seen in my life.
Wait a minute, no. Sorry, 4th boss. Wait.
4th boss?
Nothing.
Oh, well, I know there's something else afterward. But yeah, so I don't feel like I guess to wrap this whole thing up, there's a lot in the game that's just not practical. Weapons have secondary abilities, but some of these secondary abilities are, again, just not...
Never use them.
Like, there's one where... But that's the thing. Some of them are ridiculously useful.
They're very good, yes.
Because they do a ton of damage. And if you want to take out... If you're in the middle of a firefight and you got a bunch of enemies around you and you just want to take one of them out real quickly, you do the secondary ability... Your secondary ability is usually strong enough it can take out a low-level enemy with 1 hit. So if you just need someone gone, that's like a solution. But some of the secondary abilities for weapons are
garbage.
Are garbage. But what was the term I used earlier just now? They're impractical. One of them is a lightning, right? It's like force lightning, shoots out of the gun. It's close range, but again, you don't want to be close range while you're doing this for a number of reasons. It's close range. You have to hold it to use it. So it's like you're firing lightning, like a flamethrower, but it's lightning. Mm-hmm. And as you're doing that, lightning fills the screen. So if there's projectiles coming at you, you can't really see them. So it's like that whole thing is useless because you're just putting yourself in harm's way, getting close, and you can't see projectiles. There's another one called Void Beam, which fires like a phaser beam, right? That one you have to hold down, and Celine can only walk when she fires it. So again, you fire it, you have to hold down, and you're moving slowly. And the good thing about Void Beam is that if you fire it and let go, it doesn't have to recharge all the way. You have to use the entire thing up before it recharges, I think. But the point is you can fire it, let go, jump, fire it again, right? But if there's a ton of projectiles, you're constantly having to jump, retarget, fire, jump again, retarget, fire. So the Void Beam is just super impractical in situations where you have a ton of attacks coming your way. So I get frustrated in Returnal because if I'm making an attempt and it's an hour in and I haven't found an assault rifle because RNG has just decided to, smack me in the face, then it's just like, okay, this run's not going to get very far because I just can't, I'm just not, maybe it's just because I suck at the game, I don't know, but it's just these weapons just aren't good enough to take on huge hordes of bad guys. And to get to a point where I feel like I can take on a boss, you need one of the assault rifles and you need one of the secondary attacks that is worthwhile. One that fires a single round really quickly. You don't have to take your time doing it. You can just fire and forget and move away. And so I guess that's what makes me frustrated. It's difficult to, every game can't be Hades, right? It's like saying, why isn't this game more like The Witcher, right? That's this dumb critique, right? However, in Hades, I never felt like 30 minutes into an attempt, well, this is useless. I'm not going to get anywhere with this, because at least you could choose your weapon in Hades. But in Returnal, it definitely feels like that sometimes, where it's just like, I haven't found an assault rifle yet. It's taken forever. I'm going to have to go into this room. Evil Treebeard's going to go in there. He's going to be in there. He's going to schwack me with his little Treebeard missiles, and it's just not going to matter. So those are the things that I hate. Everything else about the game, I love.
Yeah.
The art, I love. The story thus far, which is really interesting. Celine started as sort of a mysterious character, and there are 2 plot lines going on. There is something about her past that's really interesting, and then her relationship with this planet, which is really interesting. And those things may be connected or disconnected, I don't know. There's figuring out the whole mystery of what happened on the planet and stuff. So all that stuff I love. The combat's phenomenal. The bosses are cool as hell. Everything about it is great. But if I could just pick a weapon to start with, that would solve so many issues. But yeah, I think parasites too, which are such a cool thing. So you equip a parasite, it gives you a benefit, and it gives you a good thing and a pro and a con, right?
Sometimes it just gives you a good thing.
Are there parasites?
Yeah, there are parasites that just sometimes give you a good thing.
I haven't seen those.
It's like they'll give you a good thing, and the debuff is inconsequential. It's like, well, yes. Okay, you're just giving me something. Yes. All right, yeah, sure, and slap it on me.
I'm on the fence about parasites because 75% of the time I'm like, okay, this parasite isn't worth it. This guy isn't worth it. I don't feel like a lot of them are super worth it.
Okay.
I feel like the cons consistently outweigh the pros. So I don't know if that may be a preference thing and not a critique thing. I don't know.
Sounds a lot more like a preference thing than a critique thing.
But finding a parasite is exciting, and it looks cool because it's actually on Celine, and it's moving around and it's creepy. And when you have 5 parasites on her, she looks like an astronaut that's slowly being taken over by some weird alien foot. It's really cool.
Very cool. Yeah.
But when you find a parasite and the pro is 10% protection and the con is half health, it's like, okay, well, this isn't that's obviously not worth it.
There would be you get 15% damage, but you take fall damage. That's inconsequential because if you dash before you land,
that's one of the ones that doesn't. Okay, that's not a big deal. Yeah. But I often find myself skipping up the parasites, which is disappointing because they're somewhat rare.
Maybe I like to live dangerously because I'm just
you're just slapping them on.
that's how I felt like I got through the game.
Which may be why it's a preference thing and not a critique thing. But the weapon thing is a hill I will die on. Just give me the assault rifle, please. Please. Just give me one of the 2 assault rifles. And maybe later on in the game, I'll experiment with some weapons and find a weapon that I like
I think
more.
You should, because after Red Wastes, I never used the assault rifle again.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I use it because it also depends on depending on your
well, when I say assault rifle, I mean either of them.
The carbine.
There's another rifle that fire. I'm just calling them both the assault rifles.
I already forgot what it's called, where you level up your gun.
Yes, proficiency.
Your proficiency, yeah. Depending on your proficiency, you will find rocket launchers that have homing on them, so it doesn't matter. Shoot it and just and
that would be useful.
And because eventually you'll start finding guns that the more you use it, it levels up, and you'll unlock special traits for those guns.
I've seen those.
But there's a gun that I don't know if you have yet, but it basically it shoots stakes. But like if I were to shoot a stake on that wall and shoot a stake on that wall, electricity.
I have not seen this yet.
Yeah, and so
that's
like if I shot you with the stake and then shot the wall, like electricity would so it would constantly. And I never used another weapon besides those. And you can do multiple, so you could do like 3 there, 3 there, or 3 on you, and then 3 on the wall, and it's just you got three things hitting you.
That's interesting. Okay.
So there's those, and yeah, I use a rocket. There's actually also there's different rocket launchers because there's one that has more than 3 shots.
Okay, I've only found the first rocket launcher. Okay. I don't know if it's a rocket launcher. It just fired things.
Yeah, it fired.
Seemed like
they explode. They explode.
So yeah,
there's a projectile launcher.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't have much else to say about Returnal. But I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm enjoying it way more than I thought I would. I guess I like roguelikes. I don't know. That's weird.
I guess I like them.
If you would have asked me, a week ago, hey, are you a big fan of roguelikes? I'd be like, I don't know. But it seems like every time I find one, I end up playing it for 20 hours or so. So I don't know.
It could be a taste thing too, because there's that other one that like people love to death, Slay the Spire. I couldn't get into it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a neat concept. I couldn't get into it. But.
Okay.
So I think it just depends on the person.
The only other game I've been playing is Chernobylite, which I wanted to do a video about that, and so I'm taking my time with Chernobylite. Chernobylite went through sort of a weird phase for me. The game started off, it was really slow paced, survival horror, not a whole lot of combat, not a whole lot of enemies, not a whole lot of danger. It was more just find the resources. And so at first I was like, I'm not really sure if I like this very much. It's kind of boring. And then I started doing more story missions, and I got a few more companions. And that's when the stories were really interesting. And that's when it became much better. Okay. I unlocked more weapons.
So you were just playing the game wrong.
I guess. Unlocked more. There's a lot of dialogue with your companions, which is interesting, because I don't think it's a AAA game. I think it's like a AA. I think the Farm 51 is probably like a AA studio, however you want to quantify it. But I started talking to my companions, and they always have really interesting stuff to say. And I don't know if the Farm 51 is like Ukrainian studio or anything like that, but the game is set in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, right? So there's no this is based on, like, it is the Chernobyl exclusion zone. It has all the same landmarks. They talk about the power plant exploding in the 80s. Okay. So it's based on, it's historical fiction, essentially.
They are Polish.
They're Polish. Okay. Well, that applies too in this case, because a lot of the dialogue is about the character. The main character is interesting because he's a bit older and he was alive in the 80s. And he remembers what it was like to live under Soviet rule. Yeah. And he has a lot of anger toward the KGB and toward sort of the way Soviet rule worked.
Yeah. Understandable.
Understandable. And it almost seems like the developers are sort of speaking through him.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee that, obviously, because I don't know any of them personally or anything like that. But it certainly feels like there's a little bit of personal history that's put into these characters when they talk about their frustrations with, I can't believe when the Chernobyl exploded that they didn't tell anybody. Like, it's not just people writing, how could they do this? It's people writing it that were there or born around the time, They're part of the Soviet Union, at least, not necessarily, in Ukraine or around Chernobyl, but just part of that part of the world. And so it makes it like really interesting because there's little bits of dialogue here and there where it's not just a character saying the KGB is bad. It's a character, and the dialogue sounds like someone wrote it who really had bad experiences or who disliked growing up sort of in certain places. And I find that really interesting. But once I got more companions and started doing story missions, started doing the game correctly, Connor, I started to like Chernobylite a lot more. And yeah, so.
I was going to make the joke that we constantly make about, like, we'll have them on the podcast next week. But then I saw the name, I'm like, that's right, Polish. I I don't know how to pronounce any of this. So sorry, Poland.
Farm 51, we'll have him on the show next week.
Every single one of them.
Every single, we'll have a discussion with 100 developers.
Yeah,
about
6-hour podcast.
Yeah.
10 minutes each person.
Yeah. Go. You have 10 minutes to talk about what you want to talk about. Richard, please take the reins away from me.
I want to stress, like, I have said it several times in this podcast, but I think that people should give games second chances or third chances, because you never know when you're going to like something again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you guys might laugh at me, but recently my friend wanted to play something new, and I don't know how we discussed it, but I told him to give Avengers a try, because he just wanted something to like jump in to and whatnot. And he's very casual. And I was like, I'll tell you what, I'll play with you, man. Just co-op or whatnot. And so I started playing Avengers again, and now I really like it.
Okay.
Like, when I played it last time, months ago, or last year, I said it was good, and you could tell the live service was very shoehorned in. I don't know the specifics of the updates they've done since then, but like the new Wakanda update is coming out in like a week and a half. It's going to be free expansion, adding Black Panther and a whole new story. And they already had a Hawkeye story and Kate Bishop story. So there's way more to the game now than there was back at launch. But the gameplay, maybe it's because I got past playing as only 2 characters and now I have all of the Avengers on my team. But each one, although the game plays the same no matter who you are playing as, like, square, square, triangle, do a combo, square, 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 triangle, different combos, etc. Each person really does have their own personality to them, and I have found that playing as characters like Captain America or Black Widow are way different than, like, let's say Hulk or Iron Man in certain situations, and they each bring something to the table. Now, when I was playing with a friend in other missions, multiplayer missions, that's when I really started having a lot more fun with the game. Not to say I wasn't before, but having somebody that on the screen with you, and just 4 Avengers, and just you're against armies of like robots and stuff. It's actually a really, really cool feeling. And so
just thematically appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. And they also have, if you perform a specific move on a larger enemy, the other player has a chance to join in on like a cooperative attack, and it's really neat. I got it mostly, obviously, to play with my friend, and we are having fun with it, and I'm glad he's having fun too. But I do want to check out the Wakanda expansion, so that's why I jumped in it as well. But yeah, I've been playing that, and I'm just surprised at how quick I turned around, and that's why I think that you should give games a second shot, because when you play a game, you never know what type of mindset you're into at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so it could really, really be a detriment to how you feel about that game. And that's why it took me like 3 or 4 times to play Fallout 3 in order to actually get into it. Like, this was back, when it came out in like 2008, 2009. So
to be fair, Fallout 3 did have a very interesting intro.
It did, yeah.
You played as a baby.
When you played as a baby.
Liam Neeson is your dad. So yeah, that's cool. I played that. Played more Apex. The new update is out. Lil Nas X, they added him in the game. I don't know if you've seen it. That's a joke. His name is Seer, but he's Lil Nas X. Yeah.
Okay.
Old Town Road with Lil Nas X. So.
I completely believed you, because I was like, LeBron James is in Fortnite now. Like, I'm not gonna.
Ariana Grande is in Fortnite. Actually,
I'm not gonna be
this
surprised.
weekend. I think I'm gonna download it and watch that concert, because their like events are really, really awesome. I don't know if you've ever seen them, like the pre-recorded. But anyways, moving on. so yeah, I've been playing Apex Legends, and he has an ability to. He has a chest piece in it. It lets loose like nanobots that are like moths, like they look like moths, but they create basically a domed grid around a specific circumference area that anybody in that area will get zapped, and all of their abilities are null for a certain amount of time. And you can see where they are and where they're going to be moving.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So he's a support character. But playing on the first day of the update, it's just you land in the city, and it's just there's grids everywhere, because you can see as a player, and it's just like And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'll play next week when everybody's done.
It's funny. It's funny.
I do have some more games to play, but of course it's all about time. I got the new Phoenix Wright game. It's not called Phoenix Wright. It's called Ace Attorney Investigations. But it's like a prequel in the early 1900s. And
that's when he's an intern.
No, it's his ancestor.
Oh, okay.
It's funny though. I can't wait to play it because they Sherlock Holmes is in the game.
Okay.
But they can't.
They can't call him Sherlock
They
Holmes.
can't call him Sherlock Holmes because the estate are still being assholes about it. So his name is Herlock Sholmes.
Yeah. Oh,
that is beautiful.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So I can't wait to play, but that'll be a while. And I got another game which. I hope to play soon. I'll talk about later, but Sakuna Rice and Ruin, but I'll get to that later. I had a situation at work 2 nights ago. It made me really upset. So we mentioned it last week or 2 weeks ago, but there was a Super Mario 64, a sealed Super Mario 64 that sold for like 1.5 million on an auction site, Heritage Auctions. And I don't know if I talked about it in depth, but basically what it boils down to is that the rich people who buy art from each other at like exorbitant prices, like they have gotten their hands on video games now. And so that's what's happening here. Like one of the guys who owns a portion of Heritage Auctions is one of the ones who bid on this Mario game. So it's like these aren't real collectors. This is a different game that people are playing, but now I have people coming in that's like, wow, that game sold for whatever. And it's like, no, you idiot. Like it didn't sell for that. Games don't just, it's worth 300 now. All of a sudden it's 1.2 million. That's not how rarity or pricing works. Sure. But I had this guy come in and he was like, hey, I've never been to your store before. I just moved in. I was like, you got a lot of cool stuff here. He's like, do you focus on the old stuff? And I said, yes, yeah, absolutely do. Explained to him how everything works. And he asked if I had any sealed stuff. And I was like, I get very few sealed stuff because, nobody opened it back then. Or everybody opened it back then. We wanted to play them. We were kids. Yeah. And then he said, oh, well, do you guys do something called Rally, like rally.com? And I was like, no, I've never heard of that. And he's like, oh, it's this website. And he pulled out his phone and he started showing it to me. And when I realized what it was, I immediately ended my discussion with this guy. Because what rally.com or rally road, rallyrd.com, what it is I have their site up right here. I'm gonna read what they do.
We can get through this, Richard.
So
you look like you're shaking a bit.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So we source, verify, and acquire the most noteworthy items from collections and individuals across the world. We turn that item into a company via regulatory qualification, then split it into equity shares. We open an initial offering on Rally where investors of all sizes can purchase shares and build their portfolio. After 90 days, investors have the chance to sell shares in-app or add to their position on periodic trading days through registered broker-dealers. So
you're buying shares of a collectible?
You're buying shares of a video game or a baseball card or a jersey.
And I'm sure this has probably been around for a while.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The price of that goes up and up and up. And if it sells, you get it, whatever shares you put into it.
Sure, yeah, okay.
So I immediately ended my discussion with this guy because it's just like, you're not here for video games. Like, you're here because you're trying to make money. Like, you don't care about the situation or what we do at hand. You're just in it for yourself, ultimately. Because he started asking very specifics, like, oh, do you have complete box stuff? Is it brand new? Is it this and that? Because he was looking for a deal to flip it or get something out of it. Sorry.
That's fine.
So it was just really like, it took me back. It took me aback because this hobby is no longer like for us. If that makes sense.
Yes,
it sounds gatekeepy,
but so one thing, if you are aware that you may be sounding gatekeeping, that's a good thing. You're self-aware. Sure. Two, I understand because you're someone who's passionate about something, and like they aren't, right? Like they're passionate about money, which is cool, I guess. So I could understand the difference there, because anything, anything can be sold like that. If someone out there decides, hey, this is going to be worth this much money, and by someone I mean a market of some kind. Yeah. Whereas to you ascribe a certain artistic value to it that isn't necessarily tangible. So no, I totally understand that.
And it's not like it doesn't happen here. I mean, we go to conventions, so you see, like autograph photos of movie cells or character portraits and stuff, and that is the same, but I feel it's a bit different.
Oh no, I think there's a good difference between going to cons and like there's like the actual like the cell from this anime, and you purchase it for several $100s because that's the only cell of that,
right?
And buying a timeshare of a cell.
Yeah, right.
It's timeshare.
Which makes sense.
I mean, it's NFTs with more steps.
Yeah.
So I don't think your dislike is
I think it's
unwarranted.
Justifiable.
Yeah, I think it's justifiable too. Because whenever money gets poured into a business, the business gets worse. I don't know. I
don't like the phrase "we take collectibles and turn them into a company."
Right? Yeah,
that's very skeevy. And when
that just sounds like it's some like Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, sounds like money laundering.
This has been true of sports for a long time.
Memorabilia.
Whenever that things get sketchy real quick,
they do
with authenticity and with. If you've ever watched an episode of freaking Pawn Stars, and it's like, oh, my grandpappy gave me this Babe Ruth signed autograph, and it's been in the family for 100 years, in 12 seconds. It's a fake. So things get really sketchy really quick. So yeah, and that's because there's money to be made off of it.
Yeah, right. Yes.
So, and I don't have any examples of video games, but I have lots of examples of like skeevy autograph stuff. Sure. If you go to a Yankees game, maybe even a Diamondbacks game, and you sit or stand next to where the players will drive in, there will be people with backpacks.
Oh yeah.
Who backpacks just full of random pictures, and their whole model is to try and grab a player, have them sign something, and then they go flip it somewhere, right? Or you have the people that. I don't know. You've seen the infamous stuff like, people that catch balls and in the stands and they're right next to like a 12-year-old kid, stuff like that. Or, a player goes to sign autographs and there's like all these kids and then there's a 45-year-old man.
I don't know, you're going to say 45.
Who's like just got all kinds of images on or all kinds of pictures. He's like, sign my pictures. And all the kids are just happy to be there, So I think that's the kind of thing. You are the little kid at the baseball game, and he was the 45-year-old man trying to flip a couple pictures. Yeah. And that's and so I can understand it, sure.
But it's just it's all the same. I was trying to further separate the comparison, but no, they're the same. So. Yeah, no, that's my story, and it's just like, ugh, like it just rubbed me the wrong way.
The story was good. Yes. It was going one way, took a trip the other way. I thought I found this great website. Nope.
Fuck you, man! Get the fuck out of my store.
I just got like Dwight in the Office. Shun, unshun. Please leave. Shun. Okay, we're ready to move on.
Yep.
We want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this episode. They have been silently supporting us since the very beginning, and we felt it was time to give them some love. The like and share buttons have been at our side since episode 1 of the podcast. They can be found just beneath this episode. Please give them a click, it helps us greatly. If you're feeling lucky, click the bell icon to enter for a notification anytime we post new content. You may be surprised by what you get.
All right. A lot has happened at Activision, and so we are going to recap what has happened since our last recap. There's a bunch we're not going to get to. What I've done is I've taken a lot of the things that have happened and tried to summarize them in a single sentence or two. And then in a bit, I'll toss over to Richard, who will talk about another lawsuit with shareholders that's going on. So we'll talk about that in a second. But big stuff since we last left you. J. Allen Brack stepped down as president of Blizzard and is being replaced by Jen O'Neill, who was studio head at Vicarious Visions, and Mike Ybarra, who is a veteran member of the Xbox team. Both had since, and Vicarious Visions was absorbed into Activision Blizzard. So they are going to step in as president. As a few people have pointed out, including Jason Schreier and Eurogamer, and I'm sure a few more, Brack's departure seems to indicate that Activision is taking an even stronger grip on Blizzard, because neither of them was considered, it seemed like they were just sort of, neither of them was considered for like CEO or anything like that. Right. So it's just two more names there. After a report by Axios, Blizzard Senior VP of HR Jesse Meschuk, I believe, also left the company. Axios spoke to dozens of current and former Blizzard employees and said that Blizzard HR knew what was going on and actively shielded abusers from, quote, punitive action, end quote. Nikki Broderick, who was an employee from 2012 to 2019, said she approached HR multiple times at Blizzard. In one case, Broderick and a manager got into a heated argument during which her manager wouldn't let her leave her desk or reach for her phone. When Broderick reported the incident to HR, she was told it wasn't harassment because, quote, he didn't touch you, end quote. There are a bunch of other stories in the Axios report, so that's just one. But like I said, there's a bunch of stuff that we won't be able to get to. Richard, do you want to tell us about... you're going to tell us about?
Shareholders in a class action lawsuit say they were economically damaged because Activision Blizzard withheld info about the company's culture, specifically what has come to light since the initial lawsuit. Reading from an Ars Technica story by Kyle Orland, quote, lawsuit cites multiple filings Activision Blizzard made from 2016 and onward. Filings include boilerplate language regarding the risks to the business imposed by various legal matters. Activision Blizzard said that such routine claims and lawsuits were not significant. We do not expect them to have material adverse effects on our business, financial condition, results of operations, or liquidity. End quote. The proposed suit argues that Activision Blizzard withheld info from shareholders that led to inflated share prices, and Activision Blizzard shares have dropped since the story broke.
So I don't... it's crazy to me to have two stories like Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard happen within a year of each other and be so similar in a lot of ways, specifically with HR. And we'll talk about Fulbright Games later on, and Fulbright Games has its own HR story too. HR seems to be a recurring, and I'm going to say this again in 30 minutes when we get to the next story, but problems with HR seems to be one reoccurring issue in these big gigantic stories, which I think is crazy because that's such a fundamental like you would think it's such a fundamental elemental thing for a company to get right, and for it to be bungled so poorly at one company is enough. At a company as big as Activision Blizzard is another thing. At two companies as big as Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard in the same reported on in the same year, just seems completely crazy to me. Again, I don't think I'd have to look back. I don't know. I'm glad Activision Blizzard, this seems to be, besides their initial reaction, which it looked bad when they said it, it looked bad a few days later, and right now it has aged like fine milk. It's horrible when you look back at their initial statements. And so besides that, I feel like Activision Blizzard has moved a little bit faster than Ubisoft, but maybe I'm remembering wrong. However, I haven't seen, and I could be wrong about this, but I haven't seen, again, Bobby Kotick say something like, I'm sorry that I presided over this, right? Like, the buck's gotta stop somewhere. These are systemic issues, so it's not a single person's fault, but at the same time, you would think somebody in as such a powerful position as CEO would take some kind of responsibility for this, not just hey, this isn't us, right? Because both Yves Guillemot and Bobby Kotick have made statements, similar statements, but neither, as far as I know, have apologized that it happened under their watch, right? And I think that's just something telling about that. J. Allen Brack apologized like that, and he's gone from the company. And his statement was the most apologetic thing to come out of Blizzard, or to come out of the whole situation, at least. There was I'm forgetting her name. Oh, geez. I want to say her first name is Jan.
Oh, yeah, the warmonger.
Yeah, I don't remember. Oh, yeah, she was in the Bush administration.
Yeah.
Been written about a lot. I'm completely ghosting on her name here.
I know her, but I don't know the name.
But her initial statement was much more in line with Blizzard's initial statement.
Yeah.
And so, Blizzard's statement looks bad, but it doesn't come from a single person. Her statement came from her. So now that looks doubly bad because it's just from her specifically, And if Brack left the company, I don't see how. I don't know. It would be weird to me if I worked in Blizzard and I know Brack left and I know his statement and she's still at the company and I've seen her statement. But again, I'm someone who I think, I don't know, I don't have a lot of sympathy for C-suite executives who preside over these things and somehow survive or make it out the other side. I feel like with more responsibility, you take it with more power and with being a billionaire, these are things you should take responsibility for. Maybe I don't think I'm being super harsh. I don't know. So I don't really know if I have much else to say other than that now.
There's always two sides to that HR thing that I hear. It's like, within the company, if you have a problem with something, go to HR, because that's what you're supposed to do. Go to HR. Sure. And then there's people on the outside of the company. It's like, wait a minute. No, HR is not your friend. They're there for the company, not for you. So ultimately, so that sucks because when you are with a company inside of it, you expect your HR to do something because
of course you should be able to.
Without a worker, like there is no company. That's basically how it is. So honestly, it should be the inverse. HR should be there for the employees, but ultimately they don't seem to be in all these stories because they aren't. The CEO thing, I agree with you. And then I started thinking about something, and this is not a knock on my business. It's not a knock on my owner, but like my owner has specifically said before, like, you guys are here, so I don't have to deal with it. And that's what I think, particularly with Yves Guillemot and Bobby Kotick. Like, I don't want to believe that they're like, I had no clue, but at the same time, I kind of do because they have the people under them so they can deal with it, not them themselves. So if they didn't hear about it, I wouldn't be surprised because I'm sure those higher executives prevent any of that to get to the CEO.
Sure. I think there's a distinction between your situation and one of the biggest game companies in the world that has huge swaths of market in the United States and China and all over the world, right? So I understand that Bobby Kotick has a lot on his table, I'm sure. But I mean,
but also that argument can be made like, no, well then you instilled these people below you to get this job done. So ultimately it is your fault.
Yeah,
so
I was just about to say that.
Right.
And Yves Guillemot's case is even worse because it was his right-hand man. It was his family. So it's like he has zero, if he didn't know anything, and that's the other thing, if he didn't know anything about your company, well then,
what kind of CEO are you if you don't know what's going on inside?
Yes, those are the questions that the investor posed to Yves, right? Was either you didn't know, in which case all this is going on and you don't know, which doesn't really make you look great.
Yeah.
Or you did know, in which case all this was going on and you did know, which doesn't make you look great.
Yeah.
Or you kind of knew, in which case all this was going on and you kind of knew.
And you didn't look into it further.
And you didn't look into it further, which doesn't look great. So there's really no option where you come out looking clean, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me, but at some point, the buck's got to stop somewhere. Like, if you're in a position of power, feel like you have to take responsibility. Now, if this were one studio head somewhere, I don't know, the story would be different, right? If this were one studio in one part of the world, maybe I have a different opinion. I really don't know. But these are both entrenched cultures in multiple places.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know. If so many people know about it, I feel like at some point it just becomes inexcusable. But yeah, that's just me, I guess.
With all these stories hitting, I do so far think that overall this Activision Blizzard story is we thought Ubisoft was bad. Like Activision, from the sounds of it, according to their shareholders, seems to be screwing over everybody, not just the people who are working for them. So since the shareholders are angry and they are now suing Activision Blizzard.
Yeah, at least a portion of them. I don't know how many.
Oh, good point. I mean, the shareholders specifically pay Bobby Kotick. Like when he gets those bonuses, those are specifically from the shareholders. So will this
enough shareholders for it to be a class action lawsuit?
Right.
Well, I mean,
will this end up like will they overthrow like Bobby Kotick or vote him out? Or I mean,
don't know.
I don't know either. He doesn't make the games.
The problem is the problem is that Activision Blizzard is making tons and tons of money because Call of Duty Warzone.
Yeah.
So it's like, there you go.
Well, WoW is tripping up. Apparently, people are reportedly leaving in droves to go to Final Fantasy 14, and people are apparently loving it over there.
But if they continue to make this much money, I don't really think. Maybe I'm being cynical, but if they continue to be this profitable, then I just don't think it matters to a lot of people.
I just have a certain sample size because I only have forums, the internet, TikTok, and of course the vocal minority, et cetera, et cetera. But apparently, a lot of people are leaving Warzone too to go to Apex Legends. So, but I hear this from Apex fans. So. When I scroll TikToks and I see streamers like, all right guys, this is my first day on Apex Legends, I used to be a Warzone player, it's like, oh okay, like maybe people are leaving. So I don't know, this ruffled like a lot of feathers, way more than like Ubisoft stories did. So I think there could be some major changes coming. I hope there are major changes coming, but we have to keep an eye on these stories.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that maybe it ruffled more feathers was this was an American company, or at least its headquarters in the United States or whatever. I don't know if it has I don't know if it's tax haven, in Switzerland somewhere or something. But
Cayman Islands.
Yeah, but Ubisoft is sort of global. It's Canada, it's France, Singapore, right? So it's not really in the same. It's not the same. The large American media is not going to cover it as a big company. But Activision Blizzard is one of the bigger American companies. Yeah. So it makes more sense that it gets covered more often. Like I saw a CNN story about this, and I didn't see a CNN story about Ubisoft. Doesn't mean there wasn't one, but I just happened to see the Activision Blizzard one. So, so maybe with your wider media outlets covering and stuff like that, it gets to more people and makes more of an impact that way, and so people decide to act on it more, which is fine, So, there was something else I wanted to say, but it's gone
just
away.
one thing I want to throw in there. With the class action lawsuit, Bobby Kotick probably sweating because when you're the CEO and your shareholders are mad at you, you're the one that goes.
Yeah,
it either goes or you're getting bumped down and being replaced.
I think that they've been so successful that, and maybe this is me being overly cynical, but Call of Duty has been so successful, I don't think people would want to rock the boat on that.
Well, they're
shares
suing.
have dropped, and they're suing.
They're suing.
Sure.
The boat has been rocked.
Sure, but they don't want to capsize it.
That's why they're suing, because there is a lot of tumultuous action going on.
Hey, give me a little bit of my money back, but keep making money on Warzone because I want to continue making money after this. I think that's more of the attitude than I can't believe you did this to us. We demand justice. It's more of like, listen, I don't really care what's going on to the World of Warcraft developer, but we need Lil Nas in Warzone, so keep making money or whatever. Like, that's sort of my reading on the situation.
Oh no, I get it more that they're seeing this as bad for their bottom line, so they need to change who's at the top to fix their bottom line.
And I guess I don't think it will. So that's our difference, I guess. Well, I know. It is. Anyway. Moving on. All right. Tencent stock dropped after the China Communist Party, the CCP, said games should be good, clean, and secure, just like Disney games. The CCP announced this. I don't know why. I just want to take
beautiful irony in comparing
the
Communist Party to Disney.
I just wanted to take a dig at Disney for some reason. The CCP announced this at China Joy Expo, which I guess is similar to E3.
Oh, okay.
Hadn't heard of it until this. Afterward, a newspaper managed by Chinese state media called games spiritual opium, which is something that I would consider like racially insensitive. But it was a Chinese state media outlet that said it, so okay. The link was then removed and replaced with one that didn't have the reference to opium. Tencent responded by saying they would further limit playtime for minors, including limiting play on weekends to 1 hour and no more than 2 hours on holidays and vacations. Tencent also plans to forbid in-game purchases to those under 12 and is even considering banning games altogether for those 12 and under. So we have two different controversies going on with two of the bigger game companies in the world. Both may be equally ridiculous. I have no idea, but I actually think this is fascinating for a couple different reasons. You guys go ahead.
I think I find it fascinating because Tencent is doing more. Or, hear me out. Tencent is doing more to combat what's the phrase? Exploitative and
quote unquote
microtransactions
and the aggressive microtransactions than anyone else right now.
This is true. And it's kind of
it's funny because
it would be hilarious if it weren't for a communist dictatorship.
And that's the wildest part of it is that it takes the communists to do it right.
It would be
not to get political or anything.
Sure.
It's not a political podcast.
All right. So I don't know why, but one reason I do know, scratch that sentence. One reason I find this fascinating is, like there's no hard evidence of any of this shit, right? So okay, that's number one, right? And this is we're talking about the Cardassians here from DS9,
Jesus
right?
Christ.
We're talking about Gul Dukat saying Bajor's not gonna play games, unless they're older than 12 years old. And Cisco is, Dukat, whatever. Anyway, that's
baseball
fan fiction episode. So it's ridiculous on that end. But however, we're talking about mobile games that are. Let me tell you about Star Trek is a show. No. We're talking about mobile games that are filled to the brim with microtransactions, right? The only reason these things exist are microtransactions. So people 12 and under I don't really think are their target audience. I think their target audience are people that are older, that have a ton of discretionary income, and so they just pour it into some mobile game because they're bored.
Yep.
And that is the epitome of mobile gaming.
Well, I mean, how many stories have we seen where it's like, I'm
not saying it doesn't happen.
Jimmy spent $1,500.
No, it totally happens. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Exploitation happens. When predation happens, when you're loot boxes, when you're trying to get people who may have gambling issues and things like that.
Yeah.
All that stuff happens. 100% true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I would assume that larger swaths of money come from people who have, just like with Star Citizen, it's like people buy into who have a ton of discretionary income, And so they just sort of pour money into it, and so now you have a $500 million space game
again.
that's being developed. What?
So I thought we agreed never to talk about the scam again.
But that's not to say that people that there's predation involved.
Yeah.
There is. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to glaze over that. All I'm saying is that it's not as if every single 12-year-old out there just can't stop dropping $100 bills on microtransactions, right?
Fair.
Some are, and that's a problem, sure. But they're...
Well, not anymore.
Well, yeah, not anymore. But their target audience is older people, so this doesn't really... this is fixing a problem which doesn't really exist for an cautious communist dictatorship. Like, the whole thing would be hilarious if it weren't for the fact that Tencent is such a huge company that has so much pull in different companies. Mm-hmm. Remember GOG had... What was the Taiwanese game?
Detention?
Devotion. I think it was Devotion, right?
Yes.
They put it out on GOG, and then GOG said, because of player... And it was bullshit. It had nothing to do with player feedback. They took it down.
You can't fool me.
Yeah.
It was because it was the same reason that Blizzard, sort of tiptoed around the Blitzchung incident. It was because of the money that they want to make in the Chinese market. And if you want to do business with China, you have to do business with the Chinese government. So I don't know. If I were a company, I don't know. It would be interesting to hear someone who is just getting a business going, who's just getting a development studio going or whatever, and Tencent wants to buy so many shares or some percentage of their company. Because I wonder what your thought process is right now. It's like, do you want to involve yourself with a company who's coming from a country with so much volatility when it comes to games and viewing games as, it's almost as if Jack Thompson is the CCP's video games, consultant or something like that.
And, sorry, I missed it, but you're talking about the companies that Tencent has a stake in.
No,
right?
just a fake company.
Company X.
Company X.
Yeah.
How would you feel right now if Tencent approached and was like, hey, we want to buy so much percentage of your company or whatever?
Well,
I think that'd be interesting because
would be.
Because that's a lot of money. It's a lot of investment. You can get a lot of things off the ground, but you're also taking money from Tencent, which means you're part of something that's really volatile. I'm not saying that Tencent is the only company on earth that has questionable morals and ethics and comes from a questionable
every single
moral.
one of them do.
Every single company in every single country does. But I think as much all the stuff that China does with games makes it an interesting conversation. And it would be interesting to hear from people that are, have new studios, stuff like that, what they thought about it.
I don't know much about how shares work and you're purchasing a stake in a company and whatnot, but I know Remedy, Tencent owns I think 5% of Remedy or something.
Oh, they have a ton. Tencent owns
all
kinds of stuff.
But I mean, with 5%, it's fuck off. You can't tell me what to do because you're not making the shots here. You're investing in us, but you're not making the shots.
Yeah.
There are definitely companies where they have more than a 50% stake in, which at that point I would be worried.
Yeah.
Because that is when they can influence your decision on what you do or whatnot. But
I guess it really comes down to how much Tencent wants from you.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
How much they want of your company.
And now I'm still curious about because they had some business dealings with Platinum Games, which was one of my favorite developers. They didn't buy Platinum Games, but they gave them X amount of money. But we don't know what for, and we don't know what the stipulations for. We're not going to find out. They're never going to tell us.
Sure.
But that is kind of eyebrow raising.
Yeah.
What is going on here? So,
yeah.
But it is very interesting to. Tencent is always somebody that up until very recently, I think in the last month and a half, 2 months, I've kind of paid no mind to because they haven't really done anything besides, they're kind of like vines growing a little bit, but they haven't made anything, any major decisions. But, recently with the news of them using the facial technology to, stop kids from playing games and stuff, that's kind of we should probably watch these guys a little more.
Sure.
put on the Groucho Marx or glasses and nose and play the game.
Hell yeah. but I think that as long as for at least not mainland China or Hong Kong, but like everywhere else, you know, if Tencent only has like smidge investment in the company, I don't think we would be worried about it.
Yeah, and like
as far
I said,
as them, you know, influencing anything.
They're not the only sketchy company with sketchy ties to a sketchy government.
Activision Blizzard.
There's another one. Anyway,
the legal team
Super
that Activision Blizzard is using.
The legal team at Activision Blizzard, who, oh my God, can we? All right. Well, I don't want to, you know what? I don't want to, let's just say, I'll say one thing. Okay. I'll say one thing. The legal team that Activision Blizzard hired to look into into their situation dates back to a certain event in Europe.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say, because I don't remember enough and I do not want to get things wrong, but I'll just say that and I'll let you Google it yourself. Again, if it
had
weren't
something to do with the Swiss.
if it weren't so sad, it would be hilarious, but it's also sad. We're moving on. Go ahead.
I was listening to one of my other podcasts, and one of the co-hosts on there used to study law. And he talked about this when Activision Blizzard got third-party company to investigate or whatnot.
Yeah, it's like Wilmer something. Yeah.
He immediately came out on the podcast and he's like, this is absolutely nothing, because whenever this happens, or whenever it happened while he was going to school with other companies, almost the entire time it amounted to nothing. And even then, the firms that they hired to investigate were always someone the company knew, or friends of the company, or someone who had connections. So it would always benefit the company. It would never benefit the actual people. So something that we probably should have known from the start, or at least assumed. But I thought it was interesting that he pointed that out. Don't trust anyone.
No, yeah. And
don't trust lawyers.
Wilmer Hale. Yeah, just give him a quick Google.
Yep.
Give him a quick...
Or don't.
Give him a quick Google. See what's up. They have an interesting history.
Checkered. We'll say checkered.
We'll say a crossed history. one that's supposed to be a pun. Anyway, moving on. Fulbright co-founder Steve Gnor has stepped down. This following multiple allegations of mistreating Fulbright employees, specifically women. Written by Nicole Carpenter, Polygon spoke to 12 current and former employees of Fulbright, who said their departure was at least in part due to Gnor's behavior. Gnor has transitioned to a role as a writer and will not be involved in day-to-day responsibilities. Fulbright, obviously, or maybe not if you don't know, developer of Gone Home, Tacoma, and their upcoming game Open Roads. Since development began on Open Roads, 15 staff members have left the studio, and they just announced Open Roads, I believe, last year. So it hasn't been a super long time. Well, they announced it, but they've been developing it for a while. So some context, the number of core staff members has always been about under 20 at Fulbright, and now they're down to 6. So they've lost quite a huge chunk of their workforce. Women in leadership positions at Fulbright said constant micromanagement made it difficult to do their jobs, and this was compounded by Gnor's tendency to disparage and discredit work from female employees. While a few employees wanted to report the behavior, they couldn't, since Fulbright had no dedicated HR department other than the, quote, the occasional third-party consultant, end quote. Reading straight from the story, quote, multiple former employees described the Fulbright work environment as controlling, a place in which staffers felt undermined and demeaned by Gnor because of Gnor's status as the co-founder of a beloved indie darling. Some former employees said they were worried about being blacklisted from the industry, though some ended up leaving the industry entirely anyway, end quote. Gnor released a statement himself saying, quote, earlier this year, I stepped back from my role as creative lead on Open Roads. My leadership style was hurtful to people that worked at Fulbright, and for that, I truly apologize. Stepping back has given me space and perspective to see how my role needs to change and how I need to learn and improve as part of a team, including working with an expert management consultant and rethinking my relationship to the work at Fulbright, end quote.
won't bring those people back. Sorry, like that.
Oh,
yeah.
That.
Yes.
Sorry,
That's the thing that sucks, right?
Yeah, the damage is done, unfortunately, and it really sucks to hear. Like, I don't know how precise that phrase is, though some ended up leaving the industry entirely anyways. Like, that's very discouraging.
That's super
to
sucky.
hear.
Yeah.
Because anyone who wants to work in the industry has a dream to work in that. And well, I mean, most industries, people have a dream to work in their particular, but gaming in general, like gaming is something that, said before plenty of times, it brings happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's supposed to be fun. Like, that's just what I want to do when I talk about video games. When I think about video games, it's just, let's just have fun. And people like Gainer we can't have fun because of people and that let the power get to their heads, like in higher positions. And it sucks to hear that people were completely just shunned away from an industry that they loved, and they may or may not be back. I hope they'll be back in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, his statement doesn't fix anything, unfortunately, especially if he's still with Fulbright.
Yeah, he's not part of the day-to-day operations. But yeah, so one, again, this is another story of like, what do employees go to? Who do they talk to? Where do they go? Activision Blizzard HR department was a joke. Ubisoft HR department was a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So where do they? So that seems to be a reoccurring issue in games, and I don't know. Maybe somebody needs to start a gaming specific third-party HR department that covers, California, and it's just every company is covering. I don't know, but something needs to be fixed regarding HR, because right now it seems like it's an endemic. Mm-hmm. It's endemic with the industry. The other thing is I found fascinating is when I was reading this, it reminded me of Scavenger Studio, smaller studio, not AAA.
Mm-hmm.
And you have someone in charge who is accused of, now at Scavenger it was, I don't want to say at Scavenger Studio there was sexual harassment involved. So I guess that is worse, but it makes me uncomfortable when I don't want to quantify each story and say this one was worse than this one and this one. They're all bad. They all suck. None of them should happen. But it reminded me of Scavenger Studio. And in this Polygon story, an employee at Fulbright said that when they read the Scavenger Studio story at GameIndustry.biz, it made them think of what was going on at Fulbright, and they even took it up with Gaynor. I don't know how to pronounce Gaynor. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
But they took it up with him and said, "Hey, there are parallels here. Not everything, but there are certainly parallels, right?" And so, to me, that signified one, journalism is doing its job.
Yeah.
So I hear, I don't go on Twitter, but one thing that I see every now and then on Twitter or something like that is like how games journalism is just the worst thing ever, right? And who knows, maybe only 2 people think that. I don't know. But it bothers me because you can make an argument that in the past 4 years, huge shifts in the games industry have started because of stories that have been written by Jason Schreier, Cecilia D'Anastasio, GameIndustry.biz, whatever, what have you, Wesley Impool at Eurogamer. So here we have a story where someone saw journalism and said, this sounds like the thing that's happening at my company or my work. And they told another journalist about it. And now we know about it. And changes have been made. And there's more awareness. There's more initiative. And I also think, especially with Activision Blizzard, if you are a company that has these sorts of problems, you're on the clock. Someone's going to talk eventually, and that is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Because if it is as bad as Activision Blizzard or something like that, you should be on the clock. People should be wanting to talk about that and get it fixed. There may be people that argue, well, we want to fix it within the company. With Activision Blizzard, you had enough time to fix it within the company and you didn't get it done. So I don't have any sympathy for that. Now, this is a different case. This sounds like this is one person who maybe or according to the story, had some really toxic behavior, brought down an entire studio, right? So this is different from Activision Blizzard. But the same lesson applies, is we've heard similar stories to this on the indie scene, and if this is happening at your company, if you don't fix it, it's going to be reported on. Because of all the momentum that's been made in the past few years, I think people are more willing to speak, more willing to stick their neck out to try and fix something. And I think that's a good thing. So yeah, I thought that was an important thing to point out about this, because it specifically referenced another story that we talked about just a few months ago.
Yeah.
So that's a difference being made right there. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this.
No, that's a great point to and something awesome to think about is how this is affecting the way our games our companies are ran. And like you said, with Activision Blizzard, like it should have been done a long time ago. But with Fulbright, I'd hate to use the phrase "better late than never," but with as many employees as they have, this is a good thing. They can somewhat start fresh. Sure, he's still there, but who knows? Maybe they can grow because of it now, instead of losing people and being only at 6 employees instead of.
Yeah, sorry, continue. I didn't want to.
No, I was.
Sorry. The other thing that I had forgotten about and it just appeared in my mind is the games that they've made. Right. I think Tacoma, female protagonist. I've never played it. Gone Home, right? Coming of age, a teenage lesbian. She goes through her house. You learn about, her family. I think through the game, you don't know off the bat who she is or anything about her sexuality, but it's a really cool, interesting way to tell a story and to tell someone sort of exploring their early life, right? So you have games that are telling stories about people that you don't have a lot of games telling, right? So it's strange that from that company you have this sort of situation, and it brings to mind, like, how do you separate the art from the artist and stuff like that. And also it sucks for people who I'm just a fan of Gone Home. I like the game, great game, but imagine somebody who could not appeal to it, who could what's the word I'm looking for, whose experiences in real life match the ones in the game, right? Who can actually
relate to it.
Thank you. Who can actually relate to it, and maybe they got into game development and they got here and it's like, oh, well, this is what it's really like. That sucks. Because it's a place that you would think would be more inclusive, that wouldn't have the problems of an Activision Blizzard or something like that, but did. So that sucks. So hopefully those problems get rooted out and spaces can be made where you can tell stories like this, more inclusive, different, stuff like that, and not have the bad side of things, because you don't need the bad side for these things to work. So I guess that is all I have to say about this.
I'm good.
A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
I do have tidbits today, but I just wanted to say that we didn't discuss if I had tidbits. So you just pressed the button, and I was like, oh,
it's because I trust you.
What if I had no tidbits today and you just pressed that button?
That would be the tidbit.
That would be embarrassing.
That would also be a tidbit by definition.
That was an alley-oop. That was Michael Jordan, no-look pass, John Paxson. I don't know. I just made that up. I just wanted to sound cool doing a sports analogy.
Steve Kerr, three-pointer.
There you go. Steve Kerr, three-pointer. Yeah.
There we go. Ghost of Tsushima Legends is getting a standalone release and more content. Yes, hooray. I don't know if you've ever played the Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer.
No, I haven't. Okay. I need to, though.
All right. Well, I've only played one level because I had nobody else to play with. So, let me know.
PlayStation Plus.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. It was still fun, though. I mean, that one level.
Yeah.
Anyways, Rivals is an all-new mode involving 2 opposing teams defeating waves of enemies to hinder each other's progress to victory. Each team will gather magatamas, which is an old Japanese charm.
Okay.
Anyways, from fallen enemies to prevent purchases of abilities, curse the enemy teams, finally unlock a final boss wave in order to achieve victory. For those of you who play lots of games, if any of this sounds familiar, that's because it's literally Destiny's Gambit mode.
I was gonna say.
It's literally, and that is awesome because Gambit mode is some of the most fun I've had in playing Destiny. Great mode. That will be in September 3rd. I don't think they can see a price for the Legends standalone release.
I may be wrong, but you know what? I'm not even going to say
if you have Ghost of Tsushima, it's free.
Okay.
It is free.
Okay,
but if you don't have it, it's a standalone release.
I thought I saw something about it being free. It's probably because if you have it. Okay, yeah. Cool.
This is a tidbit. Rockstar has confirmed that GTA 5 has surpassed 150 million units sold. Yeah. Over 350 million across the entire franchise of Grand Theft Auto. But GTA 5 alone, since did it come out? 2013, 2012? Yeah, 150 million units sold. That game, Rockstar Games, quick segue. When I worked at GameStop in the mid 2000s and GTA 4 out, Red Dead Redemption 2, those games just kept on selling.
Yeah.
Kept on selling. And we'd had tons of used copy, but everybody would just buy brand new, and they just kept selling. And I don't know what it is, man. Because I mean, Grand Theft Auto is a great game. Maybe it's just like the power of fantasy.
Yeah, I don't know. The sandbox of it, driving cars around, causing traffic accidents.
Yeah,
I have no idea. One thing I want to say is that I find it interesting because I think Red Dead 2 is one of the best written video game stories of all time.
Yeah.
So I hope that continues.
Yeah.
Because they're making so much money right now. And also, what's crazy, I played through GTA 5 on the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
So I mean, so that makes you think, right? Like I got it for the 360 and played through it on the 360.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back and play through GTA 5 because I remember really enjoying the story mode, but I don't remember much about it. And I know there are like multiple endings and stuff. But anyway, yeah, the online mode is where they make their money, and I hope that they can continue evolving on because there's a lot of really interesting themes both in GTA and both in Red Dead.
Yeah. One thing that annoys me with GTA 5 is it came out a decade ago,
basically,
and it's still getting content made for it, and Red Dead 2 is still starving for attention.
No
that infuriates me.
Is it out of beta yet? The online mode? Is it out of beta yet?
I think so.
No idea.
I remember when they launched Red Dead Online.
Yeah, it was when they launched initially.
Beta.
It was in. I think like a year later, they're like, full release of it. Yeah.
But I'll say that, and I know this is anecdotal, but I have never played a multiplayer game and been so plagued with hackers.
Yeah.
Than Red Dead 2. Maybe that's just my experience, but is literally, if you play Red Dead 2 for a couple of hours, it was a guarantee you would run into a hacker.
One thing that is ridiculously infuriating with the differences between GTA 5 and Red Dead 2 is in GTA 5 you could go into just like a solo session with just you and your friends. You could do like the crew mode,
which negates all the hacker
stuff, which was beautiful.
Yes,
the perfect system, and they didn't put that in Red Dead,
which is crazy,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a technical reason for it, but
because they make more money on.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, sorry, Richard. Go ahead.
Got to sell those gold nuggets somehow.
Yeah.
A well-known PSVR YouTuber has some rumored information on the PSVR 2. Apparently, it will have a Fresnel OLED display with HDR. Each eye will have a 2000 by 2040 resolution. There will supposedly be a 110-degree field of vision. May not be backwards compatible with PSVR. I find weird.
Yeah.
I would probably say it's because of the controller. That's probably why.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't see why I don't know.
It makes more sense for it being controller related than headset related.
Than headset related, yeah. Because you can use the PSVR on a PS5. It has the adapter for it. So, and it's backwards compatible with those. So I don't know. Anyways, they also state that Sony wants to take a hybrid approach with future AAA releases and make them playable in both VR and flat screen. This is all from a supposed closed-door developer conference that happened recently. Kotaku reported on this earlier today as well. I did not get my information from that. It was I wrote this before that, so I didn't check to see if there was anything else. But that's all I have for it right now. Oh, supposedly. Oh wait, I already said that launch plans to be revealed in early 2022.
So and again, we're speculating about something that's a rumor. So preface, but I think I don't like the idea of trying to fit VR into like your AAA releases. Because the VR, if you're trying to make something work with VR, I don't think the result is always great. And if it has any kind of multiplayer component, it becomes really weird.
Oh, yes.
Like a lot of people don't like that Elite Dangerous Odyssey isn't VR enabled. But right off the bat, I could understand why. Because I don't know of a FPS that is cross-compatible both flat screen and VR. Because if you think about it, like those two things are two completely different dynamics. They're two completely different, not dynamics, paradigms, right? So I don't know how you would, like, if you think controller and keyboard and mouse are different in a single match, like imagine someone who is limited, by the shaking of their head, and their accuracy is limited by the movement of their hands and stuff like that, as opposed to someone with a mouse. So anyway, so multiplayer is one thing. Single player, I think things can get weird too, just because there's so much to take into consideration. So that's something where I'm not a huge, unless it's something where I'm not a huge proponent of it, because I think you have to make concessions, and if you tack on stuff, it's not going to be very good. However, if there are, say you can play Ghost of Tsushima, nothing changes, but the VR headset is just floating and you're the camera, right? Just like it is with Hellblade.
Yeah.
Hellblade's VR option is just you're the camera floating behind Senua. Everything else is the same, right? That'd be incredible. That'd be the greatest. I mean, that'd be the greatest day of my life, right? Besides my wedding.
Of course.
Good save.
As a fellow married man, I'm sure you would agree.
Yes, of course.
Goes to Tsushima though. Anyway, so Connor's single. He can say whatever he wants. Sorry, continue, Richard.
What?
No,
that's it. I'm done.
Okay. Right.
No more tidbits. I'm done.
Forever?
No.
Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, where we post videos. Check out the Claire de Lune review, and we'll have new videos sometime soon. Sean Layden next week, along with Phil Spencer.
And the entire development team of the Farm 51.
The Farm 51. We're going to asking very specific questions about 1980s Eastern Europe history. So
remember, if you keep saying it, it's going to happen.
It will. It's like Beetlejuice. Sean Lane. See you next week.